Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. Sarah had always believed that heartbreak was supposed to heal with time, but 3 months after David walked out of her life, the wound still felt fresh. She moved to Maple Street thinking a change of scenery would help her forget the man who had promised her forever, only to leave her with nothing but empty promises and a broken engagement ring that now sat buried in her jewelry box. The small, duplex apartment was perfect for someone trying to disappear from the world. Quiet neighbors, tree-lined streets, and enough space between her and her past to finally breathe again. Or so she thought, until she met him. James Mitchell lived in the other half of the duplex, separated by just a thin wall that seemed to amplify every sound. She first noticed him on a rainy Tuesday morning when she was struggling to carry her groceries up the front steps. He appeared as if from nowhere, tall and broad-shouldered, with gentle brown eyes and hands that looked like they'd seen honest work. Without a word, he lifted half her bags and carried them to her door. "Thank you," she had whispered, surprised by the kindness from a stranger. He smiled, and something in her chest fluttered for the first time in months. "Anytime, neighbor." That simple exchange should have been the end of it. But James seemed to have a way of appearing whenever she needed help most. When her car wouldn't start during a thunderstorm, he was there with jumper cables. When she locked herself out after a particularly difficult day at work, he had a spare key made and left it under her doormat with a note that simply read, "Everyone needs a backup plan." Sarah found herself looking forward to these unexpected encounters even as she fought against the growing warmth in her chest. She wasn't ready for this. She couldn't be ready for this. Not after David. Not after the way love had torn her apart and left her questioning everything she thought she knew about herself. But James was different. Where David had been demanding and controlling, James was patient and gentle. Where David had made her feel small, James made her feel seen. He never asked about her past, never pushed for more than she was willing to give. He simply existed in her life like a steady presence, reliable as the sunrise. The first time she saw him with another woman, Sarah's heart nearly stopped. She was watering her small garden when a sleek black car pulled up, and out stepped a stunning brunette in a designer dress. Sarah watched from behind her curtains as the woman threw her arms around James, kissing him with a familiarity that made Sarah's stomach twist with an emotion she didn't want to name. Jealousy. Raw, painful jealousy that had no right to exist. She spent the next 3 days avoiding him, taking different routes to her car, leaving for work earlier to avoid their usual morning encounters. But James noticed. He always noticed. On Thursday evening, there was a soft knock at her door. Sarah opened it to find James standing there with a plate of homemade cookies and a concerned expression. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle but troubled. "You've been avoiding me." Sarah's heart clenched at the genuine worry in his voice. "I know. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why do you look like you want to close the door in my face?" The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken truth. Sarah stepped aside, letting him enter her small living room. He set the cookies on her coffee table and turned to face her, waiting. "I saw you with that woman," she said finally, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "The brunette. She's beautiful." James's expression softened with understanding. "That's my sister Claire. She was in town for a conference." Relief that flooded through Sarah was so intense it made her knees weak. "Your sister?" "My sister," he confirmed, stepping closer. "Sarah, is there something you want to tell me?" She looked up at him. This man who had been nothing but kind to her, who had somehow slipped past all her carefully constructed walls without her even realizing it. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of what?" "Of this. Of whatever this is between us. I was engaged before I moved here, and he hurt me. Badly. I don't know if I can trust my own judgment anymore." James reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently cupped her face in his hands. "What did he do to you?" The question was asked with such tenderness that Sarah felt her eyes fill with tears. "He made me feel like I was never enough. Like I was always too much or too little, never just right. He criticized everything about me until I started to believe him. And then he left me for someone else. Someone who was apparently everything I wasn't." "Sarah." James's voice was thick with emotion. "Look at me." She raised her eyes to meet his, seeing something there that made her breath catch. "You are enough," he said firmly. "You're more than enough. You're coffee in the morning and laughter in the evening. You're the way you hum when you think no one is listening, and the way you take care of the stray cat that visits your garden. Your kindness and strength and beauty, all wrapped up in one incredible woman." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but for the first time in months, they weren't tears of pain. "How do you see all that?" "Because I've been watching you," he admitted. "I've been watching you heal and grow stronger every day. I've been watching you choose hope over fear, even when it's hard. And I've been falling in love with you, piece by piece, moment by moment." Sarah's heart stopped. "James... I know it's too soon," he said quickly. "I know you're not ready. And I'm not asking you to be. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that maybe, someday, you might want to try again. With me." The silence stretched between them, filled with possibility and fear in equal measure. Sarah thought about David, about the way he had made her feel small and worthless. Then she thought about James, about the way he made her feel cherished and valued, just by being himself. "I don't know how to do this," she said finally. "I don't know how to trust again." "We'll figure it out together," James said. "One day at a time. One moment at a time." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her past and the promise of her future warring in her chest. When she opened them again, James was still there, still waiting, still looking at her like she was something precious. "Okay," she whispered. Okay, I want to try, with you." The smile that spread across James's face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. He leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers, breathing her in. "We'll go slow," he promised. "Good," she said, her own smile starting to bloom. "Because I think I'm falling too, and it terrifies me." "Good terrified or bad terrified?" "Good terrified," she admitted. "The kind that feels like jumping off a cliff and hoping you'll learn to fly." James laughed softly, the sound rumbling through his chest. "I'll catch you if you fall. Promise, promise." Their first kiss happened 2 weeks later, under the stars in her small garden. It was soft and sweet and filled with the promise of new beginnings. Sarah felt something inside her chest crack open, not with pain this time, but with hope. James kept his word about going slow. He courted her like she was something rare and precious, with flowers picked from his own garden and handwritten notes left on her windshield. He took her on picnics in the park and long walks through the neighborhood, always holding her hand like he was afraid she might disappear. He met her broken places with infinite patience, never pushing when she pulled away, never making her feel guilty for the nights when her past crept in and made her doubt everything good in her life. Instead, he simply held her, whispering reassurances until the storm passed. "You don't have to be perfect," he told her one evening as they sat on her porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "You just have to be you." What if you don't like who I really am? She asked, voicing the fear that had been haunting her. James turned to look at her, his eyes serious. Sarah, I've seen you at your worst. I've seen you crying in your garden at midnight because you couldn't sleep. I've seen you angry and scared and broken. And I've never wanted anything more than to love you through all of it. Even the messy parts. Especially the messy parts, he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. The messy parts are what make you real. 3 months into their relationship, Sarah realized she had stopped looking over her shoulder for David. She had stopped expecting James to leave, stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Instead, she found herself planning a future that included him, dreaming of possibilities she thought were lost forever. The night James first told her he loved her, they were cooking dinner together in her small kitchen. She had been laughing at something he said, flour in hair from the bread they were making, when he suddenly went quiet. What? She asked, self-consciously touching her face. I love you, he said simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sarah felt her stop, then start again with a rhythm that felt like hope. I love you too, she whispered, surprised by how easily the words came. James crossed the small space between them and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around until she was dizzy with laughter and love and the sheer joy of being alive. Marry me, he said suddenly, setting her down but keeping his arms around her. Sarah's eyes widened. What? Not now, he said quickly, seeing her expression. Someday, when you're ready, when the idea of forever doesn't scare you anymore. What if it always scares me a little? Then we'll be scared together, he said, kissing her forehead. But we'll be brave together too. 6 months later, Sarah said yes to his official proposal, offered on the same porch where they had shared their first kiss. The ring was simple and perfect, nothing like the ostentatious diamond David had given her. This ring spoke of love and commitment and a future built on understanding and respect. As they planned their small wedding, Sarah often thought about the woman she had been when she first moved to Maple Street. Broken, afraid, convinced that love was just another word for pain. She barely recognized that woman now. James had shown her that love didn't have to hurt, that it could heal instead of wound, that it could build instead of tear down. He had loved her back to life, one gentle moment at a time. On their wedding day, as Sarah walked down the aisle of the small church surrounded by friends and family, she caught James's eye and saw her whole future reflected there. A future filled with laughter and tears, with ordinary moments made extraordinary by love, with the kind of happiness she had stopped believing was possible. You look beautiful, James whispered as she took his hand at the altar. You look like home, she whispered back. And as they exchanged vows, promising to love and honor and cherish each other through all of life's seasons, Sarah realized that sometimes the most unexpected kindness comes not from grand gestures, dramatic decorations, but from the quiet, steady presence of someone who chooses to love you. Not in spite of your broken places, but because of them. Sometimes, the greatest love stories begin not with passion or fireworks, but with a simple act of kindness from a neighbor who sees your worth, even when you can't see it yourself. And sometimes, when you're least expecting it, when you're most convinced that your story is over, life surprises you with a beautiful new chapter that makes all the previous pain worth it. As Sarah and James danced at their reception, she whispered in his ear, "Thank you for helping me believe in love again. Thank you for being worth believing in." He whispered back. And in that moment, surrounded by the warm glow of celebration and the promise of forever, Sarah knew that her neighbor's unexpected kindness had given her the greatest gift of all, the courage to love again, completely and without reservation. The broken engagement ring still sat in her jewelry box, but now it served as a reminder not of what she had lost, but of what she had gained. It reminded her that sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another, better one, and this story, she knew, was just beginning.